Hey everyone, it's Dev, and you're listening to Pop Culture Ketchup, a Millennials podcast. Ooh, scary. Oh my gosh. Ooh, I'm a ghost. Boo. Welcome to Pop Culture Ketchup, a Millennials podcast. It is currently October 27th. A couple days, 4 days before Halloween. So I decided to do a part 2 to my Reddit Halloween scary stories reading. This time I'm going to be a little bit better. I can read this time. I still haven't read the stories, but I have my glasses on. And I have my tea ready. I have the lights completely off. So I'm recording this ahead of time. I have the lights completely off. I just have one candle burning. So it's completely dark. I'm setting the mood. If you haven't checked out the previous scary stories, Halloween scary stories of reading Reddit stories, it is in the last video of Pop Culture Ketchup, a Millennials podcast. So make sure to check that out. And so with that being said, if you want to follow me on my socials, it's at itsdev, ITSDEVVV on Instagram and Twitter, and then on Facebook it's Pop Culture Ketchup. Ketchup like the condiment, not actually catching up. And then this isn't plugging Twitch or anything, but I made a Twitch because I wanted to do gaming, but I'm not putting it on YouTube. I'm just doing it for fun because I thought Twitch is really cool. So you can follow me, or if you have money, subscribe there. Follow me on RunDevDev, RunDevDev. Easy. All of the things I told you to do are free. Literally $0. And if you haven't subscribed to this video yet, just go ahead and subscribe. Again, it's free. My goal is 75 subscribers by the end of the year. I am currently at 65. So 10 more, for 8 more videos. If I get 1 subscriber video, I'll meet my goal. But I should get 10 subscribers in this video. With that being said, we're just going to hop into this episode. We have 2 scary stories to read for you today. The first one is by Pippinacious again. So I think they did the neighbor one. This one's called Mimicry. Let me set the scene. It's pitch black, I think. My candle's lit, the tea. So let's get in the mood to hear these scary stories. Mimicry. I was worried when I first inherited Claudette that she would be lonely and depressed. I knew parrots were supposed to be social creatures, but I was barely equipped to handle one, much less get her a companion. Aunt June, who had generously given the bird to me after discovering how loud and energetic she could be, assured me that Claudette was an independent sort and would be fine on her own. Claudette and I had a rocky start. I was timid around her large beak and sharp claws, and she was slow to trust yet another new person. She had apparently had a number of homes in her 25 years, all of whom had given her up much the same as Aunt June had. That was mostly why I kept her. I felt sorry for her and wanted her to finally have a home, even if it meant a steep learning curve. We had what felt like a long period of adjustment, during which I learned that getting bitten, while painful, could have been much worse, and she started to at least recognize me as the hand that fed her. When I discovered she was happiest in my small, screened-in porch, I moved her cage there and gave her a free run of it, which also improved our relationship. It took a lot of time, patience, and treats, but eventually it got to the point that she would fly over to me whenever I went out and sit on my arm while she inhaled whatever I brought to her. If I had been worried about getting about her getting lonely while I was away. Those concerns were quickly banished when I realized she was making fast friends with the mockingbirds who nested in a tree behind my apartment. They'd trade calls and squawk at each other throughout the day, which sometimes got me in a little trouble with my more noise-sensitive neighbors. But that wasn't anything a few homemade cookies and apology cards couldn't smooth over. I never considered getting a parrot before, but Claudette proved to be a sweet, smart girl once you got past her initial orneriness, and I learned that she had a fairly extensive and sometimes colorful vocabulary and was an excellent little mimic. I also found out that over the course of a few months while I was at work, she'd apparently been teaching the mockingbirds a thing or two. I was sitting on the porch one evening, giving Claudette a little neck scratching before going in to make dinner, when I heard a soft but very distinct voice coming from somewhere overhead. "Shit," it said. I jumped, having not seen or heard anyone approach, and looked around, but my little corner of the apartment complex was quiet and no one was outside. In my lap, Claudette started to bob her head, her feathers ruffling over so slightly. "Shit," the voice said again. "Shit," Claudette answered. She and the voice went back and forth a few more times, enthusiastically shouting one of her favorite words, until I rushed her inside in embarrassment and to keep whoever was taunting her from going any further. It wasn't until I saw one of her mockingbird friends swoop by the porch a few times, obviously in search of Claudette, that I realized the voice I'd been hearing hadn't been someone encouraging her naughty behavior. It had been the mockingbirds mimicking her. Claudette had taught the wild birds to swear. It was going to take a lot more cookies to get back on my neighbor's good side when they figured that one out. Instead of moving her inside, I decided to try and encourage her to use sweeter phrases that I hoped the mockingbirds would pick up on. "Hello," I said over and over again. "Hello," Claudette said. "Shit," the mockingbird said. Shit indeed. I hadn't even known mockingbirds could talk, much less how to get them to pick up new words. So I scoured the internet and I asked around, hoping for some insight. They just repeat what they hear often. One bird enthusiast replied when I left a comment on a forum. "They'll pick up something else soon." A mockingbird near me constantly called my dogs for ages until it picked up a new bird song. Good luck. Okay, I told myself. I could wait them out. In the meantime, I kept working with Claudette to clean up her own language and spent a bit of time every night repeating words to her and rewarding her every time she got them right. It took a few more weeks and months, but the swearing was definitely on the decline, and I hadn't heard the mockingbirds repeating her anymore, so I was counting it a victory. One morning, when I went out to feed her before I left for work, she bobbed and paced along her rung with her usual enthusiasm. But I noticed she was making these odd, raspy noises, like she couldn't quite catch her breath. I took her up on my arm and gave her a quick once-over while stroking her back. "You okay?" I asked. "Hello?" she said, and the odd breathing stopped. I waited for a little while, almost enough time to make me late. But she seemed fine, and I rushed out to get to work. The next morning, however, low rasping noises were back. She again came over to me and fluffed and bobbed, all the while making the ragged breath sounds. Outside, the mockingbirds were responding with unusual clicking noises. I didn't pay much attention to them, too concerned for my own parrot. Unable to leave her again, when she was in such an obvious state of distress, I called my boss to let her know I had a family emergency and hurried Claudette to the nearby vet. I told them in a quavering voice that I was sure she had some kind of serious illness and explained that she was having trouble breathing, and they ushered me into a room to wait for the doctor. When he came in, I again told him about the sounds and begged him to listen to Claudette. She was sitting in her travel cage, preening quietly, completely undisturbed by the fact that her life was hanging in the balance. "I swear she sounded horrible yesterday and today," I insisted. "Sometimes these things come and go," Dr. Graham said gently. "Can you do me a favor? Imitate the sound she was making." I quickly did as he asked, hoping I'd be accurate enough for him to understand the severity of the situation, and immediately Claudette started to mimic me. Dr. Graham hid a small smile behind his hand before catching himself and becoming serious again. She's fine, Stacy. It seems she may have overheard you during some nighttime activities and is just repeating those sounds. What? I think she's heard you with a partner, during intimate moments. Claudette emphasized his statement with an unmistakable little moan. With my face burning a bright red, I packed up my bird, mumbled an apology, and thanked him, and practically ran out of the office. You've been listening to the neighbors? I accused the now whistling Claudette on the way home. Or has someone been playing their TV too loud? How did you learn to make those noises? It certainly hadn't been from me. That much I knew. Whatever it was, it must have been going on for a while. If she was starting to mimic it, I couldn't go around asking my neighbors if they were getting down and dirty with the windows open. So for now, I just had to try and keep a closer eye on what she was getting exposed to. When I released her back onto the porch, she squawked a chorus of hellos to the mockingbirds, who sang back, and then settled up on top of her cage for a nap in the sun. I sat on the porch with her for a good portion of the day, but didn't hear anything particularly telling, and eventually gave up when it became uncomfortably warm outside. I still poked my head out on occasion, but the most unusual thing I heard was the mockingbirds making their newly picked up clicking sound. While it was familiar, I couldn't quite place where I'd heard it before and dismissed it. Claudette's heavy breathing sounds started to become a more frequent part of our morning, along with the occasional moan, and every so often she'd mumble to herself, "Pretty, pretty, pretty." At least that was an improvement on shit. She and the mockingbirds continued their back and forth, and I got used to their clicking noises the same way I had their swearing. It was especially bad in the morning when Claudette was doing what I came to call her breathing exercises. Ragged breathing, click, click, moan, click, click, rinse and repeat until midday. I just had to wait them out, and they'd eventually move on to some new sound to try and drive me crazy with. But the more I heard it, the more I realized there was something about the click, which was becoming more refined and distinct every day, that kept nagging me. I knew the sound, and given a bit more time, I was sure I'd pinpoint exactly what they were imitating. But it continued to elude me. "How's Claudette doing?" my sister asked while we drank wine and had our weekly Thursday night phone call. I was sitting in my living room in my pajamas, little more than a tank top and a pair of shorts that were too small to wear out in public, with my phone in one hand and my glass in the other. I left my sliding glass door leading out to the porch open, just wide enough for Claudette to waddle inside if she wanted to join me. She's fine, still doing the nasty breathing thing. You figure out who's taught it to her? I'm leaning towards the Johnsons. They've always struck me as exhibitionist types. Raina giggled. Are they the old people? Yeah, and they need some loving too. While we laughed, I heard a series of soft clicks through the open door. Oh, I said. The mockingbirds are doing the thing I told you about. Maybe you can hear them and tell me what this damn noise is. I sprang up from the couch and crossed the living room to yank back the sheer curtain hanging across the slider. The clicking stopped immediately. Beside me, Claudette paced back and forth across her cage top, mumbling all the while, "Pretty, pretty, pretty." A bush on the other side of the screen shook just slightly. The light from inside my apartment reflected off the porch screen, making it difficult to see outside, and I froze. "I can't hear them," Raina said in my ear. "Stacy?" The bushes rustled again. Claudette started to make the shuddering, raspy breathing sounds. From the trees overhead, the mockingbirds responded with their clicks. I now recognized the sound with sudden chilling clarity. "Raina," I said as calmly as I could, "I think someone's in my bushes." As soon as the words left my mouth, a dark figure sprang upright and was making a mad dash around the side of the apartment building. It happened so quickly that I couldn't make out much. No features, nothing significant, just dark clothes and maybe a hat, and then he was gone. Raina was asking me in near panic if she should call the police while I was too stunned to answer. It had taken months for me to teach Claudette words, months for her to pick up new sounds, months for her to learn to mimic accurately. No doubt it would have taken the same amount of time listening to someone breathing heavily and moaning to repeat the sounds accurately. My stomach dropped fast and far, and I thought I might vomit. She hadn't learned those sounds from noisy neighbors or a television show. She'd learned it from the man who'd been hiding outside my apartment, panting like a dog while he watched me. I stumbled back against the slide and scrambled to get inside again. Over my shoulder, one of the mockingbirds called out into the night from a treetop. Click, click. The perfect imitation of a camera shutter. Ooh, okay. Okay, that wasn't scary. That was just not creepy, but it was just like, oh, someone's been watching her. And someone was like, getting off on watching her teach her bird different stories. I don't think that was as scary, but it was a good, entertaining story. It kept me reading. Yes, I messed up a couple times, but still. I'm going to grab some water, find a better story, and then we'll end it on this one, okay? I'll be right back. Listen up. Subscribe to this channel while I come back. Welcome back to Pop Culture Ketchup, a Millennials podcast. While I was drinking my tea, hopefully you got some likes on this video. Hopefully you subscribe to this channel, because I am doing my best out here, and it's hard writing solo. 75 subscribers by the end of this year. I'm only at 65, so hopefully if you liked this video and you want to see more content like this, you can suggest things in my DMs on my socials, ITSDEVVV. You can subscribe to this channel. You can follow me on Facebook at Pop Culture Ketchup. Ketchup like the condiment, not actually catching up. And then you could also follow me on Twitch, my new Twitch channel. There's 1 or 2 videos or 3 up there right now you could watch, or just get notified when I upload something. Okay. So, now we've got this last story by Pippinacious again. Hopefully they do better, not unlike that Mimicry story. This one's called The Limping Woman, and it's about an urban legend turned modern, so we'll see what happens. My candle's still burning, the lights are still off, and my tea is half gone, so we'll see. This is the final story, and then we'll be done. Hopefully you're sticking with me. All right. The Limping Woman. You hear the uneven footsteps first. Drag, click, drag, click. That's how you know she's behind you. The heel is broken off of her left shoe, and she drags it across the ground with every step. A sharp contrast to the steady click of her still intact pump. Help me, she whispers. It's an urgent, anguished plea. Please, I'm hurt. Help me. Don't turn around. That's when she gets you. Don't run. She still gets you, but this time she's going to make it hurt. At least that's what the rumor says, anyway. Every small town has at least one. A local urban legend that everyone knows and swears is true, because their sister's best friend's cousin's neighbor's grandson knew a fellow who actually encountered it. Ours was the Limping Woman, so named for her aforementioned distinct gait. It was said that she was a teacher at the elementary school some decades before, young, beautiful, and the victim of a terrible murder. She had been walking home to the house she shared with her parents one night after school when she realized she was being followed. She sped up and so did her pursuer, until both were running down this dark country lane with only open farmland on either side. Her heel broke and her ankle snapped, and she fell and her pursuer became her murderer. It was a slow, torturous affair that left her beaten and covered in stab wounds, and when the killer was done, he just left her to bleed out beside the road. She wasn't found until the next morning, and by then, all anyone could do was search for the person responsible. While some believe the man was caught and dealt with not long after, others think he or she is still at large, and the Limping Woman, as the victim came to be known, won't rest until her killer is caught. I was always skeptical at best of the story. I'd pass on the spot where she was supposed to appear 100 times without incident, as did everyone else I knew. It's a murderous ghost lived there. I was pretty sure I'd seen her. I said as much to my friend Steffi when she brought up that a friend of a friend of a friend had met the Limping Woman during lunch at school one day. It's true. She was out on the old highway a couple nights ago and saw her. Steffi insisted stubbornly over our sandwiches. If she actually saw her, wouldn't she be dead? I asked. I thought you weren't supposed to turn around. Heard her. Whatever. You know what I mean, Rena. Sure, I said with a roll of my eyes. It always frustrated Steffi that I didn't share her willingness to believe the unbelievable. So how'd she get away? She said the words, duh. Oh right, the woman's last words. Last words we all somehow know without ever having caught the one person who would have heard them. We know them because the real killer was never caught. He told people who told other people, and we all just magically knew to use them to ward off being killed. I finished for her. Steffi frowned. She loved all things spooky and supernatural and spent a lot of time researching our local legends, especially the Limping Woman. It's not magic, it just reminds her of her own mother and she gets distracted by her grief and leaves you alone. Okay, I said, hoping that would be enough to put an end to the topic. It was an argument neither of us would win, and I didn't feel like getting into it again over whether or not a ghost was real. At 15, it was starting to feel silly. Steffi, however, wasn't going to let me off so easily. They say she remains because they got the wrong guy and she's angry about it. Like everyone knew it, but no one cares because they wanted to blame someone. Don't you feel at least a little bad for her? She's still waiting for justice after all this time. Steffi, she only goes after people who don't believe in her, you know. I don't like the way Steffi said that. Like she had an idea forming that I wouldn't approve of, and I shook my head. Whatever it is, no. We could go out there and out to the spot she haunts. No, don't be dumb, I said. You don't believe anyway, so what's the big deal? I've walked past there a lot, okay? Nothing's ever happened. Have you gone after dark? Steffi had started to smile. No, but so what? That's when she's active. Going in the day doesn't count. This is dumb, I said again. We'll go tonight. Every argument I had was met with questions of whether I was too afraid and Steffi mocking me for being chicken. She kept it up for the rest of lunch, through our shared science class, and then passed me notes in the halls between classes after that. By the time the final bell rang, she had worn me down. But not because I believed she's there. I made sure she knew. I'm just going so you shut up. The sun set just after 5 that evening. At 7, we met up on our bikes in front of my neighborhood. Her parents thought she was doing a project at mine. Mine thought I was at hers. And we had 2 hours to ride out to the farm where the Limping Woman was said to haunt and get back before they started trading phone calls. We'd pedaled hard and fast, leaving behind the glow from windows and street lamps until darkness swallowed up the world around us. With only moonlight to guide us, we wove our way across town and passed into the outskirts, where the insects were louder and the stars brighter, and the safety that came from feeling like you were surrounded by other people fell away. It was hard not to feel entirely exposed out there on the old road, where flat fields rolled off into the distance on either side. There was the occasional barn or farmhouse that it ways off down long, dusty drives, but otherwise, it really was just us and our bikes in the night. Up ahead, Steffi said from behind me. See the cross? That's the marker for her. We skid to a stop a few yards away from it and exchanged a glance almost lost in the shadows. Scared? She asked, breathless with excitement. No, I said. It was an honest enough answer. I was nervous, sure, but who wouldn't want to be when you're outside after dark? Remember, if you turn around, she gets you. If you try to run, she makes it worse. Just stand still when she's close by and say the words. Steffi spoke so seriously that I had to stifle a giggle. It was ridiculous. I kept trying to tell her that to all the butterflies stirring in my stomach, but it didn't do much good. We climbed off our bikes and set them on their kickstand. Steffi groped about for my hand and entwined her fingers with mine. She was shaking. Ready? Let's just get it over with, I replied. We walked up to where the cross was placed and paused. Steffi squeezed my hand and took in a slow, shuddering breath. Her fear was starting to have an effect on me, quickening my heartbeat, but I squared my shoulders and clenched my jaw and took a step forward. We crept along the roadside, careful to keep our eyes pointed straight ahead. Steffi kept reminding me in a trembling whisper that looking anywhere else could lead to trouble. A minute or two passed. It couldn't have been longer despite feeling like it, and nothing seemed to happen. My fear began to ebb, replaced by an admittedly relieved giddiness that I had been right, and I almost turned to Steffi to say, I told you so. And then I realized how quiet it was. All the insects that had been singing loudly when we arrived had gone silent. There were no distant calls from night birds, no breeze passing over us, nothing. Just the sound of our own breathing. To my surprise, Steffi sighed, disappointed. I wondered if she realized how quiet everything had become. How could she not feel how claustrophobic it had become out on that open road? How closed off we were in the dark and the silence. I wanted to ask her, but the question was like a knot in my throat that I couldn't untangle. Behind us, grass rustled, following by the crunch of loose gravel underfoot, like someone was pulling themselves slowly out of the field and onto the road. Drag, click, drag, click. Every hair on my body stood up at once. Rena, I hadn't realized that my grip on Steffi's hand had tightened so much. I could feel her eyes on me, but couldn't bring myself to look at her. From somewhere over my shoulder, a woman started to sob softly. Help me, she cried plaintively. Rena, Steffi said again. She's coming, I managed to whisper. Instead of being scared, Steffi snorted. Real funny, I get it, okay? The Limping Woman is just made up. I'm convinced now. You don't have to rub it in. Drag. Click. Drag. Click. The unmistakable sound of someone inching towards us slowly, painfully, crying out with each step. Please, she begged. I'm hurt. He's still out there. Steffi, I hissed, tears burning in my eyes. She's coming. There must have been something in my voice, a tightness that only true terror could cause, that convinced my friend that I wasn't just pretending. She grabbed my forearm and with her other hand and clutched it until her nails were digging into my skin. She only goes after people who don't believe, Steffi said. That must be what. What did I do? I begged, my mind white and blank. My entire body was screaming to run, to get away from that thing. That was getting closer and closer, but Steffi's firm grasp and my own mounting dread held me in place. Please, the limping woman sobbed. Turn around. Help me. The words, Steffi said hurriedly. You have to say the words when she gets right behind you. What words? I wanted to scream, but I couldn't speak or think. I could only hear her. Drag. Click. Drag. Click. The legend said you'd hear her uneven footsteps and be forced to listen to her pleas, but no one ever mentioned the smell. The stench of rot and earth and blood oozed through the air, slowly surrounding me and wrapping itself around me like tentacles, smothering me. I gagged and pressed my free hand over my mouth and shook my head violently, trying to clear it, trying to make sense of things. Steffi was jerking on my arm and saying something to me over and over again, but I could barely hear her over the limping woman's cries. The smell was getting so strong, making my stomach pitch and heavy and heave until I thought I'd be sick. I leaned heavily on Steffi and she pulled me in close so that her lips were beside my ear. Through the veil of panic and nausea, I heard her scream, Say the words! Drag. Click. Drag. Click. The limping woman was so close behind us now that I could hear the chill radiating off of her. The words, I thought. I had to say the words. It just reminds me of her own mother, and she gets distracted by her grief and leaves you alone. I heard Steffi's voice from the previous day echo in my head. Her mother. The words remind her of her mother. The limping woman's last words. Please. Bowel rose in the back of my throat. My mother's waiting for me. The footsteps stopped and were replaced by a high-pitched, heart-wrenching keen. From somewhere off in the night, a dog started to howl. Insects began to sing again. The wind whistled across the field, sounds of normalcy, of life. The limping woman continued to screech while I found my legs again and with Steffi and Tao tore back in to the bikes. I never once looked up from the ground. The only thing I saw as we darted by the pair of feet in torn stockings and pumps, the heel of one of which was missing. We didn't stop riding until we made it back to my lawn, and when we got there, I raced to the bushes on the side of the houses and vomited. Steffi claims she didn't hear or see anything that night, but she believes that I did. She believes that I encountered the limping woman. I tried to come up with some kind of rationalization for it, like power of suggestion or something. But when I think back to those footsteps and those sobs and that final scream, I know that there was only one explanation. And now I, too, believe in the limping woman. Okay. Well, I mean, okay, oh my gosh. Okay, so my issue is that these stories start off so well, and I feel like, oh, it's going to be so scary, and I'm going to get scared. But then we get to the ending, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, the only one from the last episode, if you haven't listened to the last episode, you should go listen to it. It was the Return to Sender one. That one was, and the other one, The Quiet Neighbors. Both of those were not scary, but they were creepy. But then these two, It's just like, oh, okay. It's like an episode of Law and Order SVU. Like, it's not. It's like, okay, like that could happen, yeah. But it doesn't. I don't know. There should have been more. Well, this was a bust. Well, happy Halloween, I guess. Let me know in the comments below which story you thought was the best out of these two. Was it the Mimicry one about the stalker person taking pictures and the birds? Or was it this one about the urban legend of this woman with a broken ankle and someone doesn't believe? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you liked what you see, if you liked what you heard, make sure to check out my other videos and give this video a like and subscribe, because I'm trying to get 75 subscribers by the end of this year, and I'm currently at 65. Let you be one of those people that help me, and I will truly thank you. I also have my socials, Twitter and Instagram, at itsdev, ITSDEVVV. And then also there is the Facebook page, Pop Culture Ketchup. Ketchup like the condiment, not actually catching up. And now I have a new Twitch channel where I do video games. I am currently in the process of figuring out how to be better at video games, so watch me on my journey. It will be RunDevDev, RunDevDev. So with that being said, I hope you have a fantastic Halloween. There will be a video of my web series coming out this Thursday, so check that out. And don't forget to vote and wear your mask, and have a great rest of your day. I will catch you on the next one.